Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Superman and Lois, Season 3, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with, the Lois side of things. Obviously, they're going to be entering, her last round of chemo before she gets, surgery, or maybe this... I don't know if that that was the last round at the beginning of the episode, or she's gonna go through one more and then the surgery. Whatever the case may be, it never crossed my mind. I just didn't even think about it. It was oh yeah, of course she'd get a mastectomy, not even just a single, but a double mastectomy post the chemo and the surgeries to do that. And what that would mean for her, because it's right, she has a form of breast cancer, so sadly she would end up losing her breast. I wasn't curious. I wasn't sure if it was going to be one or both of them, but it's just, this is the first time they've brought it up, but it's it should have clicked in my head of right, it is that is the natural progression of that situation. You shrink the cancer as much as possible when you try to cut it out and try to prevent it from ever coming back. That's, that's the hope and everything. And I can't even imagine what that meant for someone in that position. I don't, I'm not in a position that's something you even have to think about. And even Lois, it talks about it later on that she had been thinking about it for a while. It's at the beginning of all of this, she knew that was going to be a thing, but I think it makes it even more real now that it's about to happen, that it's coming up. And so obviously this revolves around a dress from 17 years ago. She only wore it once, but what it signifies is Clark sold his entire baseball collection, which I love. Lois and Lana, 17 years apart, had the same reaction of oh, even this particular card, and it's yeah, because he wanted to get Lois something special, because it was she was going to the Medis. It was a big journalist award ceremony. And I thought it was so interesting because Lois is from the perspective of right, I wear pants all the time. That's, I don't really wear dresses much, and that, so for her, she kind of felt weird in it, but Clark was no, I've never seen you anyone more beautiful than you are right now, and I think a little bit of that stayed with her because it's hey, Clark said this wonderful thing, and obviously that was such a significant point too, because that date was also when they ended up settling on when they were going to get married. So there's a lot of emotion and memories tied to this specific dress. And it's also because, once she has her mastectomy, the dresses won't, and I think that's probably why she cleaned out a lot of her clothes. There was the clutter aspect of it, and so many other people use it, but this dress in particular, there's so much tied to it that is also I would never be able to wear it again anyway. Even if we wanted to break it out on a anniversary occasion, it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't be able to fit it. It wouldn't fit my body anymore. And I do love that, because Clark couldn't really broach the conversation. He didn't really know how to. And so Lana is there to kind of help. And I think that's great that she has a really good friend like Lana to really kind of broach that conversation with. And, I even love the conversation they had about Lois is yeah, I've had boobs since I was 9. She was I actually wanted them to go away. And Lana's really? I didn't get mine until I was 12. In fact, I got one. And so I had to stuff my bra so they seem even until the other one came in. I was geez, I can't even imagine that. That's wild. That, once again, the wonders and the craziness of the body and stuff like that. But it is that thing that Lois has always felt weird about her body, but now it's hey, I'm finally comfortable with my body. Now cancer's going to take that away from me, because our biggest concern, it's about how Clark's going to feel about her body, how she's going to feel about her body, because she's not feeling sexy or feminine now. It's and what if that's probably going to be even more so when I lose my breast, because it's maybe they can do reconstructive, surgery, but it's also yeah, that also depends on they won't know until after the surgery whether that's even a possibility, so she may never get her breasts back. And even if she did, they will never be what they were. These are hers, they're going, and it's that's, and once again, it's also about not just it's about her feeling sexy, and especially in Clark's eyes, what if he doesn't find me attractive? What's sex going to be like, because that isn't, and I think that's so, it's oh, sex doesn't matter. It's it is part of the equation of any relationship. Like, sex is a factor. It's not, you can't be like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, yes, it matters it just depends on the relationship. In some relationships, it might be a bigger factor than it is in other relationship. Every relationship's different, but it's still part of the Venn diagram. I mean, it's still part of the diagram, like, no matter how you slice it, to some degree in any relationship. So it is something that they will have to, like, consider. And Lois is worried, like, hey, what if, like, Clark doesn't find me sexy anymore? And I love that she's like, right, what you said about me in that dress. He's like, I said that because you are so amazing. You're so inspiring. You're so amazing that, you know, you inspire me every day. And she was like, but you were also talking about body. He's like, yes, because I love your body. I was like, oh, that's so cute. But she's like, what if, like, I have scars and stuff like that? And, like, those scars represent the fact is that you are still here. And now that means that the surgery was successful and that you're still here and that I get to keep you in my life. So I'm always those scars will be something that we can be grateful about because what they symbolize, you know. It's like, well, you know, what if I don't, like, you know, sex, you know, without it, like, that's a part of our relationship. And it's like, yeah, but we'll figure it out along the way, you know. I even love when you flash back to, like, that night of that, like, thing. It's like after they decided on where to go, where they were going to have the wedding, it's just like, so how fast do you think you get this dress off me? I was like, hey, yo! Oh, and then, like, putting up, like, the limo, like, glass between the front and the back of the vehicle. But I think it's also beautiful. It's like, oh, we'll probably only be doing some cuddling for a while. And it's like, oh, you want to do that? Remember that night? You want to do what we did? And it's like, he's like, are you up for it? And she puts on the dress, you know, even if this is the last time she wears it for a while. Them flying high in the sky. I don't know if that's going to be it's probably not going to be a whole, ooh, we're having sex in the air thing. Maybe, or maybe it's just some heavy making out like it kind of ends up being, but it's still very, very beautiful. I also love, my favorite bit is that situation with, when Lana's talking to her and, like, Clark walks in and they're like, hey, Lois is like, yeah, we want to go to that place. It's basically this world's version of Hooters. And Clark's like, oh, the chicken wing place. And Lois is like, no one goes there for the chicken wing. No one goes there for the food. Lana's like, yeah, it's for people in, like, people come to see the women in the tight tops. And Clark is like, oh yeah, I put that together. And Lana looks at Lois and is like, you have nothing to worry about. I was like, you're too pure, Clark. You are too pure. You dork. I love it. Cause when he bought her the dress, she's like, oh, no one's ever bought me a dress, before. And Clark's like, yeah, me neither. I mean, never been in a position to buy someone a dress. I'm like, I love how much of a dork you are. It's super, adorable. And I don't know, like I said, just the ending of it, like, them flying in the air together was beautiful. So you stack that on top of, like, let's transition over to the whole, kind of in the love, department. Obviously, Mateo and Nat have the whole Romeo and Juliet thing, because our families are literally blood feuding right now. Obviously, John Henry has more of a reason than Bruno does, but regardless, their relationship is kind of caught in the middle. And I think a little bit of everything that's going on with just like, hey, who Bruno is, and him being the head of Inner Gang. They, like, obviously Sarah, Jordan, and Jonathan weren't as supportive in this regard, especially in Jonathan's situation where it's like, yeah, my girlfriend's dad wasn't a great dude either, so I shouldn't cast aspersions. But he even apologizes later on of like, right. And even is the one that suggests like, hey, you want to be, maybe you can meet up with Mateo. Cause like, right, he has shown to be nothing but a good dude. So maybe he didn't know about his family. I mean, cause also they got to come from the perspective of, yeah, we went 17 years not knowing who our dad really was, So it's like, yeah, families keep secret. Once again, it's a big difference when it's like your secret is like, yeah, I'm this world's greatest superhero versus, hey, I'm the leader of this large, powerful gang that has hurt people. It's a massive difference. So, I mean, even the show's covered that before about like secrets and stuff like that when about the whole conversation about, does Pia know about, the whole conversation about Pia's circumstances and, her being married to Bruno and how that made Lois feel complicated about it, especially when it comes to like family secrets and stuff like that. So that whole jam. It is this interesting thing when like Mateo and her finally do get to meet up. And it's a back and forth of like, well, your dad's not the greatest guy. It's like, even I was like, hey, yo, Mateo, what are you saying? It's like, well, to be fair, he is kind of leveraging Pia, being able to see Pia. And it is this thing of like, sadly, Mateo doesn't know fully who his dad is. Because he asked his dad straight up, like, did you hurt people? He doesn't pay attention to the fact that his dad never said no. His dad was like, how could you ever think that? He never directly said no. The first words out of his mouth should have been, of course not, but he didn't. His first words were, how could you even ask that? Let's stop. Listen, he has to cover it up. The fact is, we know Bruno's hurt people. We know Pia's killed people. I mean, we've seen it on screen, but also like, back when Moxie was running things, it seems like Pia was his number one hitter. It seemed like it. I mean, cause we have no idea how long they've been connected to Inner Gang. We know they've known each other since childhood, but they might have been mixed up in it since they were kids as well. I mean, the way South Metropolis is, like, it makes sense that's probably a situation where like that was the only way you can make it by. It was being part of a gang. That's how you survive type of situation. So. But it's like, yeah, they're lying to Mateo about that. So Mateo has a better view of his parents. But even then, you're always going to view your parents in a better light. That's always a complicated thing of like, can you ever look past the terrible things your parents have done? Especially with the way the episode's going. Like, I'll go ahead and jump to it. Mateo is brought in. His dad chose him like, hey, this is what I've been up to. And everything I've done has been for you and your mom. And this in particular, the moment your mom's cancer came back, I decided to start working on this. I'm going to cure your mom. So in Mateo's mind, everything his dad's ever done has been, once again, it's that thing of how much are you going to forgive because it's about keeping your mom around. So it's like, that's a complicated thing of like, yeah, my dad's done some terrible, bad stuff. But even then, he might not know like, oh, my mom's done this type of yada, yada, yada. Because I'm curious, does even Nat know? Because I don't think they know this yet. But she is, because we know that, because she even admitted it, that she's the one that killed this Earth's John Henry Irons, but I don't know if they know that yet. I mean, they have enough reasons to beef with Bruno, considering like, yeah, he did kidnap your sister and try and kill her. Let's not forget that. But it's also like, Onomatopoeia was trying to kill Lois and him not too long ago. But it's also, like I said, I don't think none of them know that. So that's probably going to make Nat feel a certain way when she finds out, whoa, she killed my dad with this. She specifically, like, it's one thing knowing Bruno definitely had a hand in it, but knowing specifically she's the one that did it, and she was about to repeat history again last episode, it's kind of a complicated thing, so. It's that thing of, yes, John Henry Irons is going hard in the paint because it's like, yo, he's pissed. Like, the fact of the matter is things didn't have to turn out the way they did. Like, Bruno did what he did last episode to make a point. Like, he could have handled that way differently than he did. I mean, obviously, John Henry had all the reason to have beef with you because, once again, by that point, it's been well established you'd already tried to kill his sister at that point. Like, there was never going to be any, like, mending offenses there, and now it's like, cool, you try to kill me too, you're gonna do it yes, you made my daughter go away, but you were practically gonna kill me despite all of that. What were you gonna do in the aftermath after you killed me? You think my daughter was gonna take that kindly? Like, what was gonna happen what were you gonna do then? But either way, John Henry is the one kind of leading the charge this time. Obviously, the way he's got Nat like kind of locked down, no phone, got this tracking device, even gave her like this rod. He's like, that could, a powerful like stun rod. So obviously he's got a lot kind of on his mind, and he's kind of, it's understandable why he has such rage, because like, right, it's on him to protect Nat. His sister was already threatened. He already knows that Bruno had a hand in killing him on this earth. So it's like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, also tried to kill me last episode, but it's also like, right, you could come after my daughter. I've already lost my wife to some bad guy that I couldn't do anything about, because he was never able to do anything about the Superman from his world. But like Bruno, this is someone here. You and me are on the same playing field. Yes, you have like the power and connections, but at the end of the day, we're both men. I can take care of you. I can stop you. I can put you down like the rabid animal you are, type of situation. So I think that is where a little bit, like, it's a little bit of that. I couldn't do anything beforehand, but I can do something now. I couldn't do anything with the evil Superman on my earth, but I can do something about you on this earth. So there's a little bit of that. So he is like using Pia to kind of force Bruno's hands, but that it is that thing of like John Henry did what he did, and that forced Bruno to do what he did. Doesn't justify it, but him like, that's why I was like, yo, sending your goons after John Henry Irons like in broad daylight, why would you do that? It's because he wanted to force John Henry's hand, because he knew that if he could push John Henry into a position, because like obviously Sam ended up like making John Henry like take a step back, because it's like, whoa, you knew Superman was here trying to talk to him, and you had us bust in already. It's like, all right, you knew what was up. All right, you got to go. Like, you got to take a step back because you're too heated in this moment. And the way Bruno was smiling, like, oh, I got you kind of taken off the case. I mean, because Clark, it is that thing of, yes, Clark is in a position where he is sympathetic, not even just sympathetic, empathetic to what Bruno and Pia are going through. But he's like, I don't want to let that cloud my judgment. But for Lois, it's like, that's what makes you Superman, is how empathetic you can be, not only to everyone else, but even your enemies. So it's like, right, I will try and get you to see Pia, but you have to meet us halfway. You have to return everything that you've stolen. And I don't know if he ever intended to, because he knew that John Henry thing was set in motion. He probably knew they wouldn't be able to do anything against John Henry, but he knew it would piss John Henry enough. He'd make a big move. And so I guess the point was to kind of put himself in a position where he had more of the leverage again. So he even later on sends Henry Miller after him. And it's like, yeah, his suit's busted up, so he doesn't have it. So Henry Miller's like messing him up. And so Clark has to step in. Turns into a fight. I was like to say, stuff has gone down in Smallville before, but this is the first time Smallville's gotten jacked up to this point. Like Main Street, like when Clark like punched him and just, yeah, they went toe to toe. Like Clark was pulling out the laser vision and stuff. It's like, obviously, it's not Invincible season 1 finale like Destruction, but like on a much smaller scale it could have been. But it's still like, man, look at all of this. Obviously, had to work with the DOD to kind of like get the place cleaned up. In the aftermath, it's like, yeah, now that Lana's mayor, she has to kind of deal with that. It's like not something Smallville had to deal with on a regular enough basis. Now it's like, yeah, you kind of have to with Superman living in town, but also with just everything that's going to happen, all the stuff that happens in Smallville now. But when it came down to it, especially because Henry Miller was making a point of like, yo, you're just a man, you're nothing without your suit, and he had tossed Superman away. So John Henry Irons brings out the hammer. Because it's like, yeah, we know he can use it without it. It's just not a good idea because it will shatter his arms, like if he like really powers it up. But in that moment, like he summoned it, it hit Henry Miller, and Clark saw him about to do the final blow, but it's like, no. And in that moment, Henry Irons killed Henry Miller, and it's like, I didn't have a choice. And Clark's like, you always have a choice. You didn't have to do that. Yes, your life was threatened, but it's also like, he was also already on the ground. Like, after that first knockback, you could have, like, it wasn't defense at that point in time. You went after him. It's like, you also, like, that was, I mean, it was a public enough fight, dude. It's like, because even later on, John and Jordan are like, yeah, did Mr. Irons actually kill that guy? It's like, everyone's, like, blowing up their phones about it. It's like, yeah, killed him in the middle of the, like, at the heart of Smallville, killed the dude out in the street. And it's like, yes, you were defending yourself, but it's still kind of wild. That's going to be complicated for Nat. It's like, dude, your dad killed someone publicly. It's like, yeah, but he was defending himself, but still, It's like, but it is that thing of like, right, Clark never crosses that line of like, you didn't have to do that. You shouldn't have done that. You always have a choice. And that comes up later on when Nat's like, right, Dad, like, I get, maybe you had your reasons in that situation, but we didn't have a choice when it came to, like, we could have had final moments with Mom. Are you really going to deny Mateo and Bruno, regardless of who Bruno is? Are you going to deny them the right to see Pia one last time, especially if she's nearing the end? Like, are you going to be able to live with that? Like, that, because that will be your choice for doing that. So that's the last we kind of see of that, but you can tell those words really did hit. Nat's words did like weigh heavy on him in that moment. So I think he will change his mind, but still. And once again, like, Bruno's going to have at least his son's support. Once again, he's probably not going to know all. That's going to be the true test. When Mateo finds out everything his dad's done, regardless of the reasonings of like, oh, it's been for my mom, all the death, all the killing, because he killed people before his mom, like, got cancer. So it's like, are you going to be okay with that? Because everything he's done subsequently since has been for your mom. But there's also still that gangster side of him of like, oh yeah, I do terrible things. Because it's still a part of who I am now and who I've become. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things kind of play out on that front. When it goes forward with all of this. Also, I'd looked it up really quickly. I'll bring this up. I didn't realize this season was a little shorter too. I'd looked it up just yesterday. I was under the impression this was going to be another 15 episode season. It's only 13 episodes. So I'm like, oh, so we only have 4 episodes left. Interestingly enough, I was like, interesting. So it's going to be interesting. Well, I keep saying it a lot. I'm curious to see where all this ends up taking us. There's also it gets covered a little bit this episode. Obviously, Jonathan and Jordan kind of make up. They still haven't told their mom and dad because it's like, yeah, Clark and Lois are already dealing with so much. We don't really want to add more to it by telling them like, yeah, that Jonathan's kind of in the position he's in with Kyle right now, but also that Kyle's under the impression there might be another superhero in town, superpowered individual in town. So that's going to be something, yeah, it's kind of like a background thing, but it's probably going to become more of a thing going forward. But like I brought up previously, I'm pretty sure Kyle's probably going to start thinking, he's probably going to put the pieces together, but he's going to probably think Jonathan's the one with powers instead of Jordan. I can definitely see that being, that was like my theory before. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but I did like that, obviously, because like I said, they did make up, and I love Sarah being like, come on, hug it out. All right, I'm going to get in the middle of all this, and like, joins the hug. So I love it. So that's good. But it's like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.